So how do you make from scratch meals every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner without getting burnt out or feeling frustrated? This is one of the questions that we get asked most often, so let's talk about it. So I just want to start by saying that I have 100% experienced these feelings of frustration, even bitterness maybe, when it comes to making from scratch meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for my family. So know that I am not coming from a place of we have this all figured out, we are perfect at this. This can be a struggle, but I want to share with you the things that we have learned over time that have really helped and that have made this, just go much smoother. I also want to acknowledge the fact that no two families are alike. And so the things that I'm sharing with you that work well for our family may or may not be a good fit for you and for your family. So take what you can glean from it, ignore the parts that maybe aren't a good fit for you. And so hopefully it will be helpful and you can take something away from it. So just some quick thoughts before we dive into the nitty gritty, practical, day-to-day, how we do this. Just some kind of overarching thoughts that have made a really big difference for me, especially just in terms of mindset about meal planning. So one of the things that I see most commonly on social media is moms that will post help, I feel like I'm stuck in a rut when it comes to mealtime. DM me all of your best meal ideas. I need help, or something along those lines, right? That I'm feeling stuck in a rut. Give me your best recipes so that I can try some new things for my family. And I get it. I've totally been there. And I feel like having that inspiration can be really, really helpful sometimes, can be really inspiring, can give you some kind of fresh creative juices, and that can be a really good thing. But I also just want to put it out there that maybe being stuck in a rut actually is okay. So every time I kind of have this feeling of feeling like I'm stuck when it comes to making meals for my family, the first thing that I usually do is ask them, what do you guys want to be eating? How are meals going? What do you guys want me to make? And honestly, when I ask them that, the things that they share are usually all the things that I normally make anyway. It's rice and beans, it's noodles, it's some of our favorite meals that we tend to make most weeks anyway. And so it just has given me a lot of freedom in recognizing that while I feel like our family can be stuck in a rut with mealtime and I have put that pressure on myself, they actually aren't experiencing it that way at all. And they actually really like the meals that we have. And so often when I go out of my way to find new recipes, I'm really excited about them. I spend lots of time making them, and then we have them for dinner. And usually the response is kind of not great. And it kind of feels like this wah-wah sort of experience because I put a bunch of time in it, I was excited about it, and then it's kind of a letdown. But when I make, just the normal meals that we have in a typical week, it's great because my brain can kind of be on autopilot when I make those meals. It doesn't require a ton of mental energy to make those things that I'm used to making. And it's just the staple foods that our family enjoys. So it's kind of a win-win thing. So I'm not saying don't ever try new things or ask for new recipes or create new things. I love to do that on occasion when I have capacity in my world to make new things. But don't feel like it's a thing that you necessarily have to add, each week a new recipe if you're already feeling like you're in a place of being burnt out or frustration when it comes to meal planning. And kind of going off of that a little bit more, I actually feel like the hardest part when it comes to meal planning is not the actual act of cooking, lunch or dinner in itself, but it's the work and the mental taxation that it takes to just come up with a plan. Figure out what you're going to be making. I feel like that's most of the battle. If I know what I'm going to be making the food is not that hard. It's just having the ingredients ready and making it. But it's the stress of coming up with the ideas and figuring out what that's going to look like that I think is the harder part. So if you can kind of already have planned out, I know my family enjoys these meals. Here are 15 meals that our families enjoys. I have them written out. Then it's I can just visit that when I'm in those kind of places of feeling frustrated about what I should make and I can't come up with ideas and I'm stuck in a rut, I just go back to that list of like 15 things that I know are winners with our family, that I know how to make, that are in our wheelhouse, and that are gonna be a hit no matter what. And I just rely on those, and we just make those every day. Okay, so what do our meals actually look like? So for our family, and this might be unique from your family, but we grow and preserve the majority of the food that we have to feed our family all year round. So this is, preserving, storing vegetables, freezing the fruits and vegetables that we have. We pretty much always have beef, pork, chicken in our freezers. We have, a big collection of eggs from our hens, and we have a family milk cow, so we have all things dairy pretty much all the time, right? Your milk, yogurt, cheese, all of that. So that's kind of what we always have on hand that we are working with. So that's great, but it does mean that we have less variety. So I only go to the grocery store usually about once every other month. And so you may be thinking like, that's crazy. That's just what we do. And that works for us, but that means we're not buying a lot of new, fresh ingredients. Like most of our meals revolve around kind of some basic staples and our storage crops that we have, like potatoes and carrots and beets and things that we've preserved, like sauerkraut or frozen fruit that's in our freezer, or things that we've canned, like tomato sauce and applesauce and things like that. So those are our staples. That's what we're working with. And then about once every other month, I will go to the store to just stock up on. So we have a Costco membership, which is something that we get for Christmas every year for my parents, which is great. I have, kind of a list that I just already have made that I know these are the items that I buy from Costco. So things like oats, rice, coconut oil, nut butter, and nuts, some things like that I get from there. And then we have another local grocery store that I will go to occasionally just for some other more basic things that our family needs. And that's when I might get some like avocados or bananas or things that we don't have on hand all of the time, but when I go to the store, we enjoy them and I will pick them up that we will have for a couple weeks after that. So that is kind of what it looks like for our family heading into planning meals. That's what we're working with. As far as actual meal planning, I don't plan out my meals. So like on the weekend, I'm not planning out meals for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. However, I do have a rough idea and some daily or weekly rhythms that we pretty much always have in place when it comes to our meal planning. So first thing, and I think this is like the most important thing when it comes to feeding your family real, whole, nourishing foods is take out your meat in advance. If you have meat on hand, thawed, ready to go, you can make a meal and it won't be that hard or take that much time. So usually every Friday or Saturday of the week before, I will thaw several pounds of meat that our family will then eat eat in the coming week. And so that is a huge, just really important thing in making sure that our meals go smoothly the following week. So with that meat that we thaw, one of the things that we pretty much have on hand always and take out each week is one whole chicken. So we raise chickens on our farm. We make sure when we are raising our chickens that we have, that we get enough to basically have one whole chicken every week for the entire year. And so I thaw a chicken, and then first thing Monday morning, what I pretty much always do is first thing when I get up, is I take the chicken, I put it in our slow cooking pan, I cover it, or I fill it with water, add a little apple cider vinegar and salt, and I slow cook that chicken all day. And then Monday night, we will have, fresh chicken for dinner. We'll have the whole chicken. I'll make some sort of side with it, some, potatoes or carrots or something. And that's what we will have for dinner on Monday night, almost always. Why I love doing that is because then, so we usually get pretty big chickens. Like I think the one that I did this morning was a 6-pound chicken. And so our family will not eat that whole chicken or eat anywhere near that whole chicken in one meal. We'll have quite a bit of leftovers. So after we eat it, I take all the meat off the bone. and I strain all the broth from the pan. So then after Monday night, I have a bunch of shredded chicken that's ready to go, and I have a bunch of bone broth. And so those things are ready to be used for meals throughout the week. And so that has just become a really important rhythm in our weeks that I can then use to kind of figure out what the rest of our meals will be. So usually with that leftover chicken, I'm either going to be making something like a chicken salad or using it maybe in sandwiches or something easy like that. Or I'll put it in something, some kind of soup or stir fry or casserole or something like that. But it's just a great, protein source to have on hand, cooked and ready to go for a quick and easy meal when you need it. So breakfast is the one meal of the day that our family does not eat all together. So we work from home, we homeschool. So usually all 6 of us are eating all of our meals together besides breakfast. And so one thing that has been really, really important for Jim and I in our days is that we tend to get up a good hour or ideally like 2 hours before our kids get up. And this is just really important time in my day to feel mentally prepared for the day, to figure out what my day is going to look like, to just kind of start planning ahead and just kind of give me that mental, just some peace and quiet in the morning to have a good start to my day. And so oftentimes in that morning time, I usually get up and I make my breakfast. And if I know we're gonna have something that needs to be in the slow cooker, like this morning with the chicken, I get that going first thing in the day before anyone is even up. And I actually probably usually do this at least 2 or 3 times during the week with stuff like soups or rice and beans or kind of those big one-pot meals that can be slow cooked. I'll get them going first thing in the morning before anyone is even up. And that is just a great hack to have these really calm, stress-free meal times when it comes to, whether you're having it for lunch or dinner. It's just ready to go and requires 0 work beforehand to get there. So especially for us, like on Tuesdays, we are co-op days. So we're gone a good chunk of the day at our homeschool co-op. And so I always try to slow cook something on Tuesdays so that I know at the end of the day, when we are all tired and we are all feeling done, dinner is ready to go and I don't have to think about it. But like I said before, so breakfast is the one meal of the day that we don't all eat together. So I like to get up, everyone kind of does a different thing. So I like to get up early, and my breakfast every day for the last several years has been the same. So I always have a bunch of roasted vegetables on hand and ready to go, cooked and everything. And so I will stir fry up some greens like some kale or chard. And then I'll add some cooked roasted vegetables to those greens. And then I'll cook usually 3 eggs, add those on top, throw a little scoop of liver pate in there. And that is my breakfast. And that has been my breakfast every day. And maybe you are thinking what? That's crazy. That sounds weird or whatever you might be thinking. I don't know. But it works really, really well for me. And I love it because it's this really gourmet feeling breakfast, but I can make it in, 5 to 10 minutes because the vegetables are already cooked in advance and everything else is really easy. And as a mom with lots of young kids and a full day ahead, having a really solid, nutrient-dense, protein-rich breakfast first thing in the day is just how I feel my best. And so it is just really important to the rest of the day and how I feel and having energy that I just have that really solid, really good breakfast. So that is my routine to have for breakfast. And then Jim usually makes himself 3 to 4 eggs. He might have that alongside yogurt or a small bowl of granola and milk or something like that, something that's easy for him to whip up on his own. And then after I usually go for a walk and do chores outside, I will come back and make breakfast for the kids. And so usually 4 to 5 days a week, I would say, they're having scrambled eggs for breakfast with yogurt or milk and applesauce. That's kind of our standard go-to breakfast. However, that is one thing that they would say after a few days of having eggs for breakfast, they do like to have some variety in their world. And so I try to at least 2 to 3 times a day make something different for breakfast, like a baked oatmeal or a porridge or bake something like muffins. We have a whole nother video on like non-egg breakfast recipes, so I can link that below. But yeah, so that's usually what our breakfast looks like. It usually looks like me making something that's quick, like scrambled eggs, yogurt we always have on hand, and everything else is just ready to go. So that's usually what our breakfast looks like. If I am gonna do something like, you know, muffins or a porridge or baked oatmeal, I've usually made that in advance. So we're not taking a bunch of time in the morning to make something new. It's usually whatever it is, it's easy and ready to go. So that's typically what our breakfast looks like. One thing that I do think is helpful, especially if you have young kids. So we don't do a lot of snacking. It just hasn't really been a routine that we have established. And so usually our kids and our whole family, we just eat really good at meals. And so everyone comes to breakfast, lunch, and dinner hungry and ready to go. And that just works really well for us. I do not have a lot of like just snack food on hand and ready. I will have a couple things, or like we have milk, so I'm like, well, I can have a glass of milk, or we have yogurt. Sometimes I make these like gummy, like fruit and gelatin gummies that we have on hand. So we will have things if it's like someone just needs to eat something right now. But for the most part, we don't really eat between our meals, but everyone comes hungry to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which I think also just helps those meals go more smoothly because everyone is hungry when they get there. And so another thing that has been really, really important in just creating an environment of calm and just allowing our meals to be less frustrating and go really smoothly is having some sort of batch cooking session at some point in my week. Ideally on the weekend, like Sunday afternoon, I would have a half day set aside where I would be able to do a bunch of batch cooking to prepare for the week ahead. So this is where I will often roast a ton of vegetables for my breakfast, or just to have as a side to have with a meal that we're having, you know, with that chicken or with something else. But just having a ton of cooked roasted vegetables on hand is so, so helpful. This is also when I might make, just cook up a bunch of rice to have as a side, or make a batch of muffins that I have on hand for easy breakfast. And if I am doing something like muffins, I will often just have them in the freezer to pull out and thaw, stick in the oven real quick before breakfast, just because I don't necessarily, like I said, I'm not a meal planner, and that I don't have every week dictated in advance. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants to a certain extent, but there are some options ready to go in the freezer if I just need to grab something quick. What are other things that I make in that batch cooking session? I might do like a big batch of sausage patties or burgers. And again, I would probably put those in the freezer so that we don't necessarily have to have them for our meals if it just doesn't work out that way, but it's always an option to have for a really quick meal. So having that kind of bulk cooking session carved out at some point during my week is super, super helpful. If I'm unable to get that like on the weekend before we head into the week, then I always feel like I'm playing catch up and needing to kind of get those things done in the margin, which works. And we often find ourselves in that position a lot of weeks, but it's not ideal. My weeks tend to go more smoothly, meals tend to go more smoothly if I can just get that batch cooking done in one session, like on the weekend. But if not, we fit it in, we make it work in the margins, you know, roasting a pan of vegetables here, you know, making a batch of muffins here, and that works too. All right, so just to give you some practical, what do our meals actually look like? So like I said, we always do a chicken on Mondays, and then I always have a bunch of meat thawed, you know, usually kind of that beef or pork for meals the rest of the week. And so, you know, every other week I might pull out a beef roast that we will shred to make like barbecue beef or put into tacos. Our kids are not crazy about things like pot roast or beef stews. I love them, but no one else really seems to get excited about them. So usually if we're doing a roast, it gets turned into like shredded meat that gets put into tacos, or for like barbecue, something like that. We do a lot of just meat and vegetables. So a lot of, you know, meatloaf and carrot fries, or burgers and potatoes, or steak and a vegetable. Like, just that stuff is really pretty easy. It does not take a long time to cook or to make. So we do a lot of that. And then besides that, soups are huge. So every week we are making at least one big batch of soup. Our family tends to like more creamy soups like cream of chicken and rice, or we do a lot of tomato soup, or creamy potato soup are some of our favorites. Chili we make quite often. And so a big batch of soup is awesome because that will usually make 2, if not 3 meals at least for our family. So that is something we do every week. And then other things that are common for us, usually one day a week, we will do some sort of meat and pasta dish. Our kids really enjoy pasta, so we'll do that at least usually once a week. Rice and beans is also another big favorite for our kids and our family. So we'll do rice and beans quite often, or kind of just those big like stir fry, like a curry dish with rice, things like that are common meals for us. So we also rely heavily on leftovers for meals. And so I've alluded to this throughout this video, but almost no meals that we make are just gonna feed our family once, maybe with the exception of kind of some of those steak and potatoes sort of meals. But most of the things that I'm making, big pots of rice and beans, or a big batch of soup, or tacos even, these things are likely going to feed our family for at least 2 meals. And so this just makes it a lot easier. So I do the bulk of my cooking early in the week, I would say, like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday tends to be a lot more cooking heavy. And then by the end of the week, Thursday and Friday, we are doing a lot of reheating of leftovers and figuring out ways to kind of, we have a little bit of rice and a little bit of meat. So kind of putting things together to make some new concoctions and calling it lunch or dinner. And so those are the things that work really well for our family. And like I said, I don't meal plan in the sense that I'm not setting out, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This is what we're having. But it's these rhythms that have really make our weeks just really smoothly when it comes to meal planning. So it's that having that list of 10 to 15 recipes that your family really loves and just coming back to them over and over and over again when you're feeling like, what do I make for dinner? Or it's that, having rhythms of Monday we make chicken, and then I know I'm going to turn that into a pot of soup. And so it's like the type of soup might vary, but you kind of know, okay, I'm going to be making this sort of a dish. And it just makes that meal planning just not be so stressful and go way, way smoother. And with that, I do always try to know the meals that I'm going to be having at least by the night before. So if I can at least plan out the day before what I'm going to be having the next day, then I can do things like, we're going to have baked oatmeal. I need to soak the oats, or we're making chili, so I'm going to soak the beans tonight, so that it makes the process the next day when I need to actually cook that food so much easier and smoother, just with having kind of that 12 to 24 hours forethought of what do I need to do for, breakfast, lunch, or dinner tomorrow. And so that is usually kind of the pace that we go is, I don't know in advance the whole week's worth of meals, but usually I can at least tell you like, I know we have this leftover thing, so tomorrow I'm going to turn that into this other dish. And so that is how we roll in terms of meal planning, and that has worked really well for us. So I just want to encourage you, if you are feeling frustrated and discouraged about meal planning with your family, I get it. I have been there, and it is hard. Like, there is an absolute reason why convenience food is so popular and why McDonald's is on every corner, because cooking food takes time. It is not easy. It doesn't happen automatically. It is labor intensive. You are constantly making a pile of dishes that you need to wash and clean up and all of the things. Like, that is the reality to cooking these from scratch meals. But I just want to encourage you that just because it's hard and it takes time does not mean that it is bad or it is not worth the effort, because I 100% believe it is absolutely worth the effort. Not only are you building just health into your life in those nutrient dense, from scratch, made with love meals for yourself and for your family, but you're also just teaching valuable skills and just the value of valuing food, of valuing the quality of food and where it comes from, and teaching that to your kids or your family that food is not something that comes out of a package or from a box, but it is something that is nurtured and takes time to grow and is then prepared in this just really, yeah, like lovely, lovely way. And I just think that is such a beautiful and worthwhile thing to do and to pass on to your kids, and something that in large part as a culture we have lost, because going and grabbing a bag of something and sticking in the microwave is way easier. But I promise you, and I'm totally cheering you on, that it is absolutely 100% worth the effort. So I would love to learn from you. What tips, tricks, ideas have you found helpful in terms of preparing meals for your family? Share them, let us know so we can learn from each other. Drop them in the comments below. So thanks so much for watching today, and we'll see you next time.